Hello and welcome. You're joining us live from the first day of the Festival of Politics here at Scottish Parliament.
The Scottish Youth Film Foundation is working in conjunction with the Scottish Parliament's Festival of Politics as it returns with a 3-day programme of over 30 events, taking place in Holyrood over the next 3 days. We're here every day covering the most exciting events with exclusive interviews from us and chat around the festival. The programme features leading experts from the world of politics, the arts, business, media and charities. But first we wanted to show how we got here, so here's a little video from our training weekend in Lagan
I'm Caitlin, I'm coming from the Isle of Harris and I am here because I want to use journalism to hold the powerful to account.
Hey there, I'm Tom. I'm a media student and I'm from a small town called Kirkcaldy, famous for Adam Smith, linoleum and rebus.
Hello, my name is Roy and I am an aspiring filmmaker from Edinburgh.
Hi, my name's Erin, I'm from Stirling and I'm part of Festival of Politics 2025.
Hi, I'm Vinyasha, I'm from Glasgow and I'm here for the Festival of Politics 2025.
Hi, my name is Emily, I'm from Fort William in the Highlands and I'm part of the 2025 SYFF Festival of Politics team.
Now coming up, Erin interviews Liz Lloyd, the prior Chief of Staff for Nicola Sturgeon for over a decade, and Tom and Caitlin attend the Peace in the Middle East panel, which has been quite controversial, I have heard. And we're also going to watch 2 climate-themed films from 2 of our members here at SYFF.
So first we've got Rory's film, which is about the environmental impact of Edinburgh's Fringe Festival. I'm excited to find out more. Let's see.
So the Fringe is an enormous festival in terms of numbers. So the only ticketed event bigger than the Fringe is an Olympics or a World Cup. It's a huge collective effort from individuals, from organisations, community groups, charity groups. But we are pretty big, 25 days, 3,500 shows, 50 plus thousand performances, 2.5 million plus tickets. It's quite a feat that's done in a very collective and sometimes slightly chaotic way.
During the month of August, I wouldn't say the footfall here doubles, but it certainly dramatically increases. So throughout the year, there'll be tourists coming and enjoying the incredible surroundings, the architecture, the businesses, the shops and the restaurants. But during the festival, there really is a buzz about the place and it is amazing to see people from all over the world.
The Fringe and the festivals obviously have a huge impact on the climate, both through emissions from the productions themselves, big venues, but I think one of the other big ones has to be transport. So we have a lot of international visitors, not just to perform in the Edinburgh Festival, but to come and visit. And that's a really tricky one to challenge and to sort of get your head around because of course, we want tourists in the city. There's an economic impact. We want people to have a great time. We love the Fringe. It's amazing when Edinburgh is so vibrant and full of life. But yeah, it's impossible to put on a massive event like that without having some quite significant associations with emissions and impact on the climate.
So many businesses now, certainly festivals, so they're trying to be conscious of where there could be an opportunity to try and reduce that impact, I think, and that's really essential for so many of the people who come to Edinburgh. They want to know that they won't be contributing to that sort of any detrimental impact.
Lots of the venues, lots of the infrastructure is either based here or it's stored here. We're not shipping stuff around the country. We're not running trucks full of seating banks up the M8. There's a huge amount of local resource that's used to try and minimise some of that, particularly transport impact. Lots of artists will join us by train. Lots of people will use the Fringe opportunity to add onward touring or attend other events and conferences. But we are very mindful and keen to do more about how we do our part to minimise both our carbon footprint, but also how we can be resilient to climate change in the future.
we've seen the Fringe getting more and more expensive for people, and as the years go by, and that means people come for shorter stays. And actually, one way to reduce the emissions is if people are coming for a week, and staying and seeing lots of different shows. That's one long car journey or a flight that's getting a lot back from it. Whereas if people can't afford to stay more than a couple of days, we're actually seeing many more flights, many more journeys.
Certainly all of the evidence I've seen from research, particularly from the Federation of Small Business, is that in terms of climate change and reducing impact, then small business owners are at the forefront of wanting to make a difference, because some government policies and the legislation that gets brought in has to take into account of what is possible and what resources are available. Is there funding in place? Is it actually going to be affordable? Because many people want to make that change.
People want to support the arts, and absolutely we should, but lots of people do profit from the Fringe, and it's the big venues, it's those running it that actually should be taking accountability, and those are the actors that really need to be doing a lot more. There is a growing awareness of ensuring that we're all doing what we can, both as individuals, as organisations, businesses, and at a sort of government level.
But the biggest thing in the short term is actually having a baseline to measure and being able to say, where are we now and what are we working toward, with an ambition to try and get to net zero.
This is about working together. We're all recognising that there are climate and nature emergencies, and we all recognise that Edinburgh is a vibrant city and we love having the festivals here, but we can't ignore the impact that has on the climate, and we all need to work together to try and mitigate that and make sure that the impacts of climate change aren't falling on the poorest people. While we have a great time in Edinburgh, enjoying the Fringe, people are suffering because of climate change already around the world, including in the UK, and it's not fair to continue without taking some accountability for that.
The festival is the lifeblood of Edinburgh. That is something that needs to be discussed. There's certainly, I guess, no easy solution, but it is a conversation that we should be having and that we should work together to manage the success.
What an incredible film we've just watched. That was amazing. We're here joined by filmmaker Rory.
And so what inspired you to make this film?
Well, I would say that any discussion of what Edinburgh as a city can do better to improve its relationship with the climate needs to include a discussion of the Fringe Festival, because it's so embedded into Edinburgh as a city. And so I also wanted to interview the contrasting perspectives because of that, because it's so embedded into everybody's lives as part of their year. So I wanted to make sure that all ground was covered when properly portraying the subject.
Mm-hmm. I could really see that when watching, and so I wanted to ask, kind of, what about making this film really stuck out to you or stuck with you? There was a specific moment that you can remember.
Well, I expected a lot of disagreement between the different perspectives about how to approach the issue, and there was, but all three of them did come to the conclusion that teamwork and working together and cooperation is ultimately the most important thing when approaching this issue. And I was surprised because it wasn't really the answer I was expecting, but it was good to see.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, that's a really important message to be left with from your film. So thank you so much for your time. And now coming up, I've got my interview with Liz Lloyd, and I spoke to her earlier about a variety of subjects, but first let's hear her thoughts on Nicola Sturgeon's new book. Nicola Sturgeon is out with her new book, and in her promotion of the book she seems to be a lot more free, and kind of that comes with being out of office, I guess, but also how would you say that she's changed over the years? And
I think the book and everything that's happening around the promotion of the book and the stories that she's telling, I think it's someone who, like I was just saying about those younger politicians, that they have to make big decisions before they really know who they are. Yeah. And I think she found herself in a position of being so committed to politics and so involved in politics and achieving success at quite a young age, that this discovery of who she was as a person, it didn't really get to happen.
I read that, yeah. She was saying that she doesn't have an identity outside of politics.
And I kind of, having been around her through that time, in the nicest possible way, I sort of agree with that, that she was just absorbed, utterly consumed by the politics. And I think the pandemic in particular was such an intense period, but I think that's also when she maybe started to realise that there was life outside, and that once everybody was allowed to go outside, maybe she'd like to try some of it and just kind of experience a sort of a world beyond politics for a while. And I also think, like, the pandemic, I was there at the time, you had to take so many decisions that by the time it got to the end, you just thought, I don't want to take another decision ever again. Let me out.
So fair. I can imagine, like, that would be, so stressful.
So I think there was a big, like, sort of realization that, oh, maybe there's life beyond this, and then that's taken a little time to play out and to actually get to the point where, you know, she can live that life.
Yeah, and she said in her book as well that she struggles a lot with imposter syndrome, something that I myself have struggled with, and I'm sure a lot of young people in politics would. Is that something that you identify with?
Yeah, a bit. I don't think I had as much of a struggle as she did, but like when I first got into politics, it was very male. Most of them older than me. And then at some point I ended up being the boss of a bunch of these older men. And you kind of just have to own it. I sort of eventually, and I'm not saying I got over it, and I don't think she did either, but eventually you just kind of have to go, well, I'm here now.
Yeah.
So I better do it.
Deal with it.
Like I'm going to have to do this job. Yeah. And if I am like quivering about, have I got the skills? Have I got the guts? Actually, someone else has decided I've got the skills because they've given me the job. So just get on with it. It's kind of I think I have quite a tough love approach to imposter syndrome.
I'm a big advocate for fake it till you make it.
Completely. Yeah, utterly 100%.
And my friend once said to me when I was applying for this, actually, she was like, why not you? Like, you need to just say, it should be me, you deserve a place as much as anyone else. So I think that's kind of, that's always just stuck with me. So, that's a bit of therapy for me.
There's therapy, yeah.
So let's get back to Nicola. So Nicola is often a figure that like evokes the polarised nature of our modern politics. Do you think that's more to do with like her style of politics or the misogyny that's perhaps present?
It's a bit of both. I think there is definitely a strong theme of misogyny in politics in general. That exists in Scottish politics as much as it does anywhere else. I think when you then take some like big bold decisions, or you have a strong presence, or you know, and you're a woman, that comes back at you like even sort of like double.
Yeah.
You know, you get that more. But some of it is also, you know, we have and we live in a political culture that is just generally quite polarised. I think you either have people these days who don't get particularly actively involved. They're kind of the middle. They might go and vote, but they're not tracking it all the time. They're not on social media all the time. You know, they are concerned about their school, their health service, but they're not getting into the political fights, and they don't get so drawn. But then you have the edges, and the edges tends to be what sells newspapers, what people click on the internet, and that's where having a really strong opinion on someone can get you attention, and we all get driven by these algorithms to be more extreme. And I think it just builds the kind of division into the political system.
And it's just so much more amplified.
Yeah, and because of that focus on individuals, it then becomes about a person, not a policy.
Yeah, must be so difficult to like just be so identifiable and so present.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to disconnect if you are that person, if you are somebody getting that kind of polarization, you sort of have to find a way to disconnect your actual self from this figure that you are when you put on your First Minister outfit and go on the television. You know, you kind of have to learn to sort of split your personality a little bit, I think, to protect yourself from...
To survive.
Yeah, from all the attacks. And that, I think, that doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman in politics. You kind of have to differentiate your private, personal you from this you that people have made up in their heads.
Wow, what a fantastic interview you had there. That's such a big name as well.
I know, and she's not speaking to anyone else apart from SYFF about Nicola Sturgeon's new book, so it's quite the exclusive to get for my first interview.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible for the first day as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I kind of wanted to ask you, since it was such a kind of big name, how did you feel preparing for this interview?
I felt like the pressure was on. I had to I did a deep dive into Liz's LinkedIn and all her biographies online, and also Nicola Sturgeon's book. I thought it was really important to come with well thought out questions, not just go for the the headlines that have come from the book and from people that have reviewed the book. So I kind of wanted to think out what I was going to ask and make it interesting and something different.
Yeah, try and get that unique perspective, because there's a lot of people highlight a lot of stuff from the book and then it goes into headlines like her tattoo, and she talks about her sexuality, but there's a lot there that's probably not being picked up, so it's nice that you're covering that.
I think the thing that for me wasn't picked up so much was the kind of more reflective aspect of the book, rather than just the like things she does allude to her like sexuality and like the more like provocative issues,
kind of stuff,
But I think the book was a more well-rounded kind of reflection rather than what's come out in the press so far.
Yeah, and I want to ask if you kind of learned anything from the interview, especially since she's someone that's been so close to such a large, figure of like power in our politics here in Scotland. So, do you feel like you learned anything about those kind of positions?
I think I learned from her is that she could see the faults in the people that she was very close to. Like she was saying that Nicola was like, so like Nicola said herself in her book that she was like so engulfed by the world of politics. And I think Liz could see that in herself, like not just with this new book. And I think it's interesting that you can be so close to someone and then notice their faults maybe before they do. And I think it is an interesting kind of balance of power. And like she is a name that people in politics would know, but not many people outside of politics would know. So I think it's just interesting to find out about kind of the inside world rather than like just the people that are in charge. There's like, it takes a village to kind of run a country. So I think it's like just an interesting perspective on someone that's talked about so much in the press and is such a figure in Scottish politics.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's such an awesome opportunity to have that interview on our lineup today. And speaking of that, coming up now, we have Caitlin and Tom attending the Peace in the Middle East panel, and they have lots to say about that.
Over 200 journalists have been killed in Palestine since the beginning of the war in 2023. Most recently, Anas al-Sharif and 4 others from Al Jazeera. Israel claimed that Anas was a Hamas operative, but failed to provide any evidence for these claims. Do you think that the targeting of journalists is an intentional strategy for the IDF to sort of suppress coverage of the crisis, especially given the restrictions on international media entering Palestine?
So it's it's hard to know without looking at systematically at the data whether it's targeting journalists in particular, but there is a trend where journalists have been targeted not just now but earlier. If you remember Shireen Abu Akleh who was assassinated with a bullet in the head. And initially the IDF had denied it, and then a few months later they had confirmed that it was a soldier who shot her. So, journalists should not be targeted. As far as I understand, they do declare themselves as journalists, and once they're in line of duty, they should, be protected. The IDF has been targeting civilians in general, which is a problem. We have seen a lot of, I think, in the past few years, an emergence. I think they call it the citizen journalists. People who report with their phones, in the absence of professional journalism that Israel has not allowed which is not very different than what autocratic regimes have done, which is to stop international media from coming in. So I think it's very likely to be part of a strategy to mute the coverage.
To what extent has October 7th terror attacks served as a catalyst for Israel's occupation of Gaza? And are Prime Minister Netanyahu's actions genuinely focused on rescuing hostages or primarily driven by political self-preservation?
I think it's more than self-preservation at the moment. It's more of a plan to consolidate domination over the occupied territories, all of them as well as Gaza. October 7th was a horrific act, and it was almost a gift to Netanyahu to go on with expansionist policies and as I said, consolidation of Israeli domination of the land that has been documented by many human rights organizations, whether in Israel or abroad, the apartheid system where Israel maintains military and administrative domination of Palestinian population and land in the occupied territories in Gaza and within Israel itself.
Welcome back. That was an incredible interview. Amazing, guys. I kind of want to get a feel for what the atmosphere was like in the room. Could you maybe tell me a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say it's very emotional, very strong feelings about the subject, obviously, and rightly so. Had people laughing at what the experts said, had someone getting emotional in the crowd when they were asking the question. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, the audience were amazing. Like the questions that they were asking. There was one lady that really stuck out for me in particular. She was like an older lady, but the emotion in her voice and the anger and just the fearlessness of this lady to ask these experts the question was just incredible.
And this was a pretty packed hall, I'm assuming.
It was full. There was not a single seat empty. And it was great. And the panel members were so great as well, because there's a difference in backgrounds and opinions, but then a lot of really surprising sort of agreements between them all as well.
That's nice to see. It's a bit of optimism and, conflict that's so polarized and quite, there's a lot of emotion in it, as you said, so that's nice to hear. Are there any kind of parts of what the panelists said that kind of stuck out to you?
They all unanimously agreed that as it is now in the current climate, there can't be a peace in the Middle East on the side of the Israelis and in Palestinian with Hamas.
That's quite significant.
Yeah. And what I found quite striking was Jason Boxt, he's based in Washington, and he used to do some work in AIPAC, the lobby, and he was saying how even for the Jewish people and for the Israelis, they don't fully understand this issue because of the censorship that they experience around this issue. Like there are large protests in Israel at the moment for ending this war, but it doesn't get covered because the censorship is just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And is this part of the reason that both of you chose this panel out of other ones from throughout the day? Because there's loads on display and available at the Festival of Politics. Just putting in a little ad. But is there a specific reason this kind of stuck out to you and you decided to go along?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, the Middle East has always been a special interest area of mine and a passion of mine. And I feel that if we're given an opportunity like this, I feel that we have a duty and we owe it to, the Palestinians who don't have a voice to ask these difficult questions on their behalf. We see the targeting of journalists in Gaza and in Palestine. We see the lack of international media that are allowed in. So the only option we have as young people, young journalists, is to ask these difficult questions on the behalf of the people who don't get the chance to ask them.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Tom?
I think for me, because it is a very complex issue, it's very rare you get a lot of experts in the one room and taking a holistic look at the whole thing and not just a one-sided approach. That's what I was really excited about. And I'll be honest, it's the panel I was most excited for.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic, yeah. And were there any did you guys feel in any way that they came towards progress when talking about kind of two-state solution? Did that come up? Was that in the discussion?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion around a two-state solution being the only sort of viable solution for a lasting peace that is just for the both parties involved. The main issue, however, is who is going to be the one to negotiate on the side of the Palestinians. Because at the moment we've got the option of we've got Hamas or we've got the Palestinian Authority, neither of which are really viable options given past events and sort of outlook towards politics in Gaza. So that's the biggest, most complex issue, I think, to solving this crisis in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And now we're going to turn to have a look at one of my own films on orca whales off the coast of Scotland.
In the cold, wild waters around Scotland, there have been countless sightings of orcas this year. So if there are so many sightings, then how come orcas are dying off? And how is Scotland's only resident pod the most endangered in the world?
You may have heard on the news about the countless sightings of orcas up and down the Scottish coastline this year, especially here in North Berwick, where I am today, where there's been boat group tours arranged so that people can go and see the orcas out at sea. But don't be fooled by these sightings. Orca populations in and around Scotland are actually in decline, and this is especially true for Scotland's own, the West Coast pod.
The West Coast orca pod has been around since at least the 1970s and is a family bound by decades of shared knowledge and deep social bonds. They once thrived in Scottish waters, originally with over 10 members, but now they are fighting for survival as their group has not been seen with a calf in over 30 years. There are just 2 male orcas left, both over 50 years of age and unable to mate.
So why is this happening? And what can be done about it?
The simple answer is us, humans. The plastic that we use has entered the ocean and is now interfering with orcas' brains and reproductive systems. PFAS are called forever chemicals for a reason. They don't break down. Instead, they travel through rivers, soils, and oceans, building up in every living thing they touch. In Scotland, these chemicals are found in everything from firefighting foam to household products, and once they enter the marine food chain, there's no way back. For apex predators like orcas, every meal carries a dose of pollution. Over time, the toxic load is enough to cause immune problems and neurological damage. One of the West Coast orcas, named Lulu, was found dead on the coast of the island of Tiree, killed by fishing equipment in 2016. She had one of the highest levels of toxic forever chemicals in her body that's ever been recorded in a marine mammal. The decline of the West Coast community has been attributed to infertility caused by these chemicals.
This critical issue does not just impact orcas, it also impacts whales and dolphins in our waters, and all of the prey further along the food chain, such as seals, otters, and fish. Even kelp is affected by PFAS. But there is something we can do about this. By fighting to put into place legislation that protects all marine life from PFAS and microplastics, we can make a difference to what's happening to orca populations across our country.
Right now, NGOs are actively lobbying for a UK-wide PFAS ban by the end of 2025, with the Marine Conservation Society using the Stop Ocean Poison campaign to garner public support for the movement, as over half of the world's orcas remain at risk of extinction due to chemical pollution.
Despite the fantastic work being done by non-profits and research centres to help this issue, we can still raise awareness about it to help pass this legislation through Parliament and protect orcas and all other marine life in our Scottish waters.
The story of Scotland's orcas is much more than just a wildlife crisis. PFAS and microplastics are already inside of us too, the same poisons that orcas are facing in our oceans today. If we act now, we can stop adding to the damage. We can demand cleaner manufacturing and tighter controls on pollutants. Because if the orca, the top predator of our waters, cannot survive here, what does that say about the future for any of us?
Wow, Emily, that was a really interesting film. What inspired you to do this film? Do this film, and how did you come across the topic?
Yeah, well, I actually came across the topic and got inspired to do the film based off of a conference I was at, SYFF. It's a sustainable investing and investing kind of framework, and they're a group that kind of encourage investing companies like Baillie Gifford, for example, to invest more in sustainable companies that support the environment. And I was attending this conference, and there was a man speaking there called Will Alton, and part of his speech was about David Attenborough's upcoming documentary at the time called Blue Planet, and he mentioned a statistic about orcas that I thought was kind of crazy.
Wow.
And it was that almost all of them have microplastics in their body, and that their population is really decreasing. And as I said in the film, is that they are unable to have calves. So it kind of really struck me, and I immediately knew that I wanted to raise awareness about it somehow.
That's a really interesting way to come across a new topic to discuss in this forum. So that's really impressive. And I think that's all we have time for today, but join us tomorrow for more Festival Politics content.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll see you there.